What's going on, champs and champettes? It's FireMonkey here, and in today's YouTube video we have to talk about Save the World and some interesting updates regarding it that could potentially be a huge, massive revamp to the mode in general. Some people speculating that it could potentially even be the launch of free-to-play Save the World. Now, if that's coming to the game or not, I have no clue, but at the very least we do know this is going to be a pretty interesting update to talk about, and it all relates to a few leaks that we've gotten on social media through people like Fossil Southie, aka Southie from Save the World 1 on Twitter, Archer underscore Fortnite on Twitter as well, who's a Save the World content creator, and even Real Number Sets on Twitter, who have all been looking into what this Hestia codename is going to be. So we'll be going from the oldest information to the newest, and whenever I stop moving like this, it is because I am going ahead and looking up, some of the tweets, getting it all sorted here so I can talk to you guys about it. But it starts off with Archer mentioning that Epic Games has begun reworking the UI for Save the World, where they plan to potentially move some stuff around, right? So, having things like certain UI elements, like the collection book or defenders and, like research and upgrades moved into new tabs, which if you're someone who has muscle memory of Save the World with the tabs being in certain spots, that could be a little bit of a downside because all of a sudden you're going to be sitting there and not knowing, which tab things are supposed to be going into. But it is interesting at the very least to see that they're working on these little changes here and there, and that they have a Greek code name for it, because as Archer goes ahead and mentions, this specific naming for the new UI that they're planning to use for Save the World is called Use Hestia Beauty UI. So it seems to have a focus on having a beauty design on it, having something that looks a lot more modern and isn't as outdated as Save the World has continued to be. They also go on to mention that Hestia is the name of a Greek goddess, which means that Epic Games is using the name of a Greek goddess for something other than a Battle Royale map. Whether that implies something or not, we don't know. But you guys may remember back in the day when Fortnite, first released their few Battle Royale maps, it had codenames like Athena, Asteria, and then as they started going into the later chapters, it started using H codenames. Like the upcoming Chapter 7 map is codename Hera, and that's interesting to see because it means that we have two Greek codenames going on for stuff in Fortnite right now for Chapter 7. Hera for Battle Royale's, Chapter 7 map, and then Hestia for the Save the World beauty rework or whatever else is going on there. But it's not just a beauty rework people have started to notice, because also noticed in the files later down the line, if I go ahead and scroll up here real quickly, was some stuff regarding Hestia weapons, Hestia resources, and even mentioning Hestia is Hestia enabled, as a little like hot fixable toggle, something they can enable, and then if it breaks they can disable it during the update or whatever else without people being forced to use a bugged out UI or something. But seeing how they have all these little toggles, for the UI, stuff in game as well, the weapons menus, the resource menus, and not just, things moving around here and there, such as buttons being in certain tabs, and made people wonder, what is Hestia really supposed to even be? And then as time went on, we started getting more and more information. Now, of course, according to Archer, we got some information regarding the Hestia stuff that affects certain screens in Save the World. It appears that all of the affected screens were going to be the command screen, inventory screen, armory screen, hero screen, survivor screen, quest, research, llama shop, upgrades, boost screen, and it looked to be a massive UI overhaul, which would make sense because I think they still use the old friends list that shows up on the left side instead of the right side over in Save the World. So, there's been a lot of updates that have been missed in Save the World over the years that they should be working on later down the line. I mean, even if you go and Save the World right now and look at the item shop, sometimes certain items are very zoomed in, sometimes certain items actually end up using the other versions of them, such as, like the Lego version, even though you're in Save the World. A lot of weird UI glitches here and there because of how outdated certain parts of Save the World are. So Hestia seems like a pretty big update for the mode, but it doesn't seem like it's the only thing we're going to be getting, other than the fact that it seems to be a major overhaul, because most recently the other day we've gotten some new news from Chromo over on Twitter and Southie, who mentioned stuff like Hestia Beauty being a whole entire new region in Save the World, with a placeholder storm shield icon with a modifier toggle to actually be enabled on it. And they also mentioned something we haven't seen in Save the World before, which is a zero build mode for Save the World. So it appears that this UI overhaul has an entirely new region as well, and a modifier that actually disables building in this Save the World area, which makes people wonder what actually is going on here. And then we found out through Fossil Southie that it appears that they're working on a brand new, why do I keep failing that? They're working on a brand new survival mode for Hestia, which has two different codenames. There's Survival Mode 1 and then Survival Mode 2, but based on all the different information, it appears that Hestia is supposed to be this huge rework, but also content addition into Save the World that we haven't seen the likes of in a long time. First off, there's the Hestia Beauty UI, which appears to rework a lot of the UI elements. You know, it appears to rework just elements that are kind of in-game and outside of the game as well, but it also appears that there is more than just a Hestia Beauty UI, because Hestia Beauty itself has two different survival modes being worked on internally, and it appears that one of the survival modes actually has a zero build modifier enabled, which means zero build would be coming to Save the World for the first time in, I think, ever, right? I don't think Save the World has ever had a no build variant at all, so it'd be interesting to see how this actually plays in game and how it kind of works, you know, in comparison to everything else that Save the World's got going on for it. And it makes me wonder if they have this survival thing going on, right? You know, if they have a whole entire element planned where it's going to be having, you know, a whole zero build mode, maybe a wave-based survival thing like we've seen before, and then it's also going to be a UI rework. What is actually the plan here? Are they going to have two versions of Save the World? I highly doubt that, but it'd be funny. It's like, what do you want to play? Do you want to play Save the World or Save the World Zero Build? Or do you want to play ranked Save the World Zero Build or ranked Zero Build Save? I mean, you know what I mean. There's a lot of different modes that Fortnite ends up releasing, but I don't think it's actually going to be treated like a new mode. I think it's going to be, you know, a different modifier that's enabled in Save the World, and I think it's going to be one of those things where, you know, it's like a limited time event, or maybe, you know, a permanent new map mode or whatever else that they could actually go ahead and use in Venture or something like that. But regardless of what is going on with the actual Hestia Beauty mode, the main focus appears to be on a huge UI rework. This is going to be interesting to see how all that goes into play once it actually ends up releasing. Now, there's also, you know, still stuff we don't know. There's a lot more files that'll probably be added once Chapter 7 comes around, but we are starting to get little glimpses and peeks into the near future of Save the World and what could potentially be releasing in that mode that could be pretty cool to actually see. And who knows, maybe we'll actually see Save the World go free to play in the future instead of being left as that premium experience, you know, where if you're a founder, congratulations, you basically got early access for a few years to, instead of having to just pay for it nowadays, you know, in the little like Save the World starter bundles or whatever else. Until next time, however, hope you champs and champions enjoyed today's YouTube video. If you're someone to play Save the World, feel free to get excited about it, and who knows, maybe you know more about Save the World leaks than me, so feel free to kind of have a discussion in the comments down below about anything I might have potentially missed regarding this upcoming Hestia rework, or things that kind of just get talked about in the Save the World community that I might not be aware of, you know, kind of have a whole discussion down there and figure out what actually is going on in Save the World right now, or what you just kind of wish happens with that mode. Until next time, however, hope champs and champions enjoyed today's video. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, and I will catch you all tomorrow with another upload. So until then, peace out.